Hey, Void, Phoebe Russo's back, and I'm in a good mood. Are you in a good mood? Well, this collection finally is putting me in a better mood because, like last time, I watched one that I was more familiar with, and, well, Night of the Living Dead. It's a classic. It's great. How much more do I need to say? Probably a bit more because this review should be longer than 30 seconds. Okay, so, Night of the Living Dead. Now, this is probably the most populous movie in my collection because it seems that you cannot release a multi-title collection without including a copy of Night of the Living Dead on it. I'm pretty sure it's illegal not to put a copy of Night of the Living Dead on a horror movie collection. Now, I think I own somewhere to 7 to 8 copies of this movie at this point. And that's largely due to the fact that the movie has been in the public domain since its release. Accidentally. Way back in the 1968, when this movie was created, I think this movie actually released about 2 or 3 months before the. Actually, no, it was 1 or 2 months before the MPAA rating system came into play. So, it's one of the last movies that went unrated. But the point I was about to say is back then, the copyright things was a little different than it works right now. In fact, if you played the movie without having the copyright right below the title, the movie was effectively not copyrighted. So, and they forgot to put it on this one. Or, not so much that they forgot, they tried to put it on it, because they originally had a different title card when the movie was originally going to be called Night of the Flesh Eaters. But, well, they discovered shortly before release that there was already a movie called The Flesh Eaters. And they didn't want to cause confusion between them, so they changed the movie's title to Night of the Living Dead and forgot to put the copyright on the new title. And so the movie immediately fell into public domain. And Romero and Russo have lost millions based on that alone. Wow. So, Night of the Living Dead. It's the movie that wrote the zombie rules, essentially. The zombies being slow-moving shamblers that rose from the dead rather than tied to voodoo magic originated here pretty much, and as well as them feasting on the living. While Return of the Living Dead, which I've covered before, took it to the next level and had them specifically going for brains. This one had them, well, eating any flesh they could come across. It also originated the fact that zombies could be killed with a shot to the brain or severe head trauma. So, some of the key things that are almost canonized in almost all modern zombie lore originated here. Alright, so the plot. It's very straightforward. A group of people try to survive a zombie apocalypse. Simple. Ish. Anyway, our lead character, Barbara, well, she's the lead at the beginning. It does kind of shift focus to Ben later, but I'll get to that. Is going with her brother Johnny to the cemetery to lay a wreath down on their father's grave. And, well, they happen upon the living dead. Johnny gets quickly killed as Barbara flees, and she makes her blind panic trek to a local farmhouse, which has not been completely overrun, so makes her way in there and meets Ben, who helps barricade the place and begins looking after her as she now falls into near comatose shock from the events. Meanwhile, a group of other survivors from down below come up and, well, begin either helping or hindering based on which ones they are. Let's see. Local that a local and his girlfriend are quick to help, while Harry, and his family is more in the hindrance. Well, particularly him, as he's determined to take charge, despite Ben already having things well in hand, and his determination that the basement would be safer, while Ben says staying up here, boarding up the place, and having ways so you can run out if you have to is safer. So there's fighting within, while zombies threaten from without, and it's just a very good time. Particularly since the young girl down there seems to have been bitten, and, well, seems to not be doing so well. Now, the zombie outbreak in this one, they never concretely say why it caused it, but it alleges and alludes to it being from radiation brought back from Venus from a satellite that passed closely to it, causing all recently unburied dead to rise. Excuse me. Now, the fact that the girl got bitten and then later turned into one also seems to later be making it more of anyone who even gets bitten turns. But they don't expressly say that in this one, and it could just be that she died from the bite. But it more makes it seem like the bite itself caused it. So later that became more of a disease-based thing for future installments. But I digress. So, the acting is amazing. The characters, I've been naming names. These characters are memorable enough that I will remember their names. I mean, I still quote, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," so often. It's been so ingrained into me at this point. I love this movie. The social commentary for Ben on the aspect of race, well, interesting, was, from what I understand, largely unintentional. Now, I haven't said up to now, but Ben is a black man. Now, Ben is essentially the main character of the film, as he's the one leading the survivors to try to survive. And this is one of the first American films that actually had a black protagonist. So, landmark there. But when it comes to the social commentary, I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler, but it's something I feel I should talk about. So, if you haven't seen a movie that came out in the 60s by now, you really should see this one. It's a great movie. Anyway, then Ben, being one of the survivors, when the sheriff's posse comes around and is just trying to put down as many dead as they can, he comes out upon hearing them, and they immediately turn and shoot him, thinking he's one of them, without bothering to check. Now, that's the white redneck sheriffs shooting the black guy on sight. Makes for some interesting social commentary and racial issues, which the filmmakers have later embraced, but it wasn't originally intended that way, because the character of Ben was written essentially without race in mind, and they just hired the actor who played him. Name is now escaping me. Duane Jones. Then just based on his acting merit, and that scene was just already as written. But now Romero in particular seems to enjoy bringing up such other aspects in most of his zombie films of having some sort of message or commentary, and so he later leaned into it a little bit more, but I believe that's kind of where it started. Now, I've seen this movie countless times, and it's always satisfying. The zombie effects are a bit more minimalist than a lot of later things would go on to be. A lot of them just more have exaggerated features than a rotting look. But some of them just definitely have some like corrosion along their faces. But with the black and white lighting, it still looks effective. And some of the things that they're eating definitely look disgusting. This movie's going to see 5 MacGuffins for me. I do enjoy this one. Now, in all honesty, it took me probably longer than it should have been to see this one. Full disclosure, way back in my video store days, I think I've mentioned those a couple times before now, I finally rented out a copy of Night of the Living Dead because, it's such a famous movie, I'd wanted to see it. But I actually checked out the 1990 remake because I didn't know any better. And I really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I say that like it's a bad thing. It's a good movie. But I didn't realize that there was an earlier film. I knew it was one of the first ones, but I guess I just somehow convinced myself maybe it was more modern, I don't know. But I really did enjoy that one. It wasn't until much later, because that video store didn't actually have a copy of the original. How they managed that, I don't know. But I finally got around to seeing it some years later. But enjoyed it just as much. If not, maybe a little more. Well, hard to say. I'm going to be rewatching the remake for the first time in nearly 15 years, I think. Probably tomorrow. So that'll be my next review, and I am looking forward to seeing that one again. Because after the store closed down, I hadn't seen a physical copy of the 1990 version of it for, 15 years. So, it's been a while. And I remember really liking it, so I hope it holds up to my memory and my nostalgia. But original copy of Night of the Living Dead definitely does. I've watched it more times than I can count. Since then, I love the film. Alright, I think that's about it on this one. 5 MacGuffins, I'm pretty sure I already said. See this movie. It's on a lot of the greatest horror films of all time lists, and it deserves to be there. If you have any interest in horror films at all, you owe it to yourself to see this movie.